What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Combat Corporation, your source for combat sports. I'm your host, El the Postmaster Morrow, and today I have a gear review on the Leone 1947 MMA fight gloves. Alright folks, as always, I am incredibly excited to bring you yet another gear review, but guys, I gotta tell you before I go into the review about these gloves are cursed. They must be, because, I've had a couple gloves in particular where it took me a couple takes to get the video right, but this glove has caused so much technical issues on the channel, and that's why I've kind of been gone with the reviews for the last 2 weeks or so. Basically, to give you a rundown, the first time I tried recording these gloves for the review, forgot to turn the microphone on. So that was number one. Happens every now and again. The second time I turned the microphone on, mic dies halfway through. I didn't notice it until I went to go edit it, so naturally I had to go back and and do it again. But the third time, it was a smooth cut. I go in, I am this close to rendering it down for the edit, and basically my SD card crashes, corrupts all the files, says that it's gone. I had to go get a new SD card, and then on top of that, I go to sit down. First time, literally when I came home from the SD card, buying that from Walmart, I sit down, my ring light and my spotlight die all at once, and I could not believe what was happening. I'd had those things since I started the channel 4 years ago, so I looked some things up on what to get. So I just got a basic ring light now. I don't know a lot about lighting and stuff like that, but I do like how this looks so far. And it's cool because it has a remote, so I can kind of mess with it right from sitting here, and it's not so harsh on my eyes compared to the other ones. I basically had like a spotlight ring light, like a small one that was like half the size of this one, and another spotlight that just beamed into my eyes as I was recording. So if you ever notice I squinted a lot, that's really why. I also don't have the greatest eyesight, but I'm happy that this is all done. But if you know anything about videography or lighting, let me know what I could do to maybe make this better. But I basically looked it up, and it said that a one solid ring light would do what I need to have done for the channel, basically. So let's go ahead and go into the review. And once again, we have the Leone 1947 GP 115 MMA fight gloves, or contest gloves as they're called. Contest, fight, bout, they're all the same thing. But for now, we're just going to call them the Leone fight gloves. And you've actually seen these gloves even the other day if you're an MMA fan of Bellator. Logan Storley, James Gallagher, all those guys the other day actually used these because Leone is one of the outfitters for Bellator MMA. And I know what you're probably thinking, because I reviewed these gloves already, the official Bellator fight glove, which was the Everlast Power Lock, and I even talked about how Bellator and Everlast worked together to make the best MMA glove in the world, is what they were going to say, and it was going to change the game. It was going to stop eye pokes, it was going to stop broken hands, which they have done a really good job in. But basically, from what I can tell you, is that Leone kind of did their best to copy this glove in a lot of ways. Right off the bat, you can kind of see how that looks like this. The same cupping of the hand, the same curvature a little bit. It is a little bit different. One's a little bit taller, I'd say. This is a little bit more stockier. But at the end of the day, we are going to kind of talk about the differences as we go throughout. But Leone 1947, when I reached out to them last year, when you saw these on the channel, when I did my whole review of fight night time gloves, and that was, taking them out of the bag, putting them on, feeling them out, and then training them for 2 hours and then going to fight. Basically, that's what I did for all of these. And I did that for the Bellator gloves, which were these in the Power Locks, UFC fight gloves, 1FC, Ryzen, local promotions, whatever you want, PFL, all those things too. And these gloves were kind of in the middle, but Leone 1947 a year ago said that they do make gloves for Bellator, primarily on the international circuit, and they made them for the kickboxing matches that took place in countries like France, Thailand as well. France, Thailand, Italy, and Britain they made it for, because Leone 1947 is based right in Italy. European brand, reaches out to Europe a lot easier than going through Everlast, which is an American brand based out of New York and shipping out over there. I'm sure they could pull that off, and they probably have. But a lot of Leone 1947 you've actually seen in big kickboxing promotions such as Glory Kickboxing back in the day, and they are pretty big in Europe. I actually went to a kickboxing show about an hour from where I live, and the pros use Leone 1947 fight gloves for the pro bout. So they are still used very frequently in kickboxing. And Leone 1947 is a brand that's been around for a while. They also made Bellator's white gloves that they use in all their Grand Prix, like the light heavyweight Grand Prix and the bantamweight Grand Prix. I think you can still get those on the website. But Leone 1947 in general is a brand that has escaped me as long as I've had the channel, and it's a brand that I've really only ever had 3 products by. I had a pair of air mitts that I had for a long time. I gave them to another coach that I had, and he still uses them to this day, which is crazy because those got to be going on 8 to close to 10 years old, but they were kind of falling apart when I gave them to him, so I don't know if he still uses them actually. But then I have these MMA gloves, and I have a pair of boxing gloves here that I've had for a while. I just haven't used a whole lot. But Leone 1947 obviously started in 1947 officially by Orlando Leone, and he was in Milano, Italy, and he was a leather worker. Made stuff like wallets, boots, coats, purses, whatever it is, just a bunch of leather goods. But he loved boxing and actually made gloves back in the late 20s and early 30s for Primo Carnera, who was a heavyweight champion before he got beat by Max Baer. Then Max Baer got beat by James Braddock, which if you ever watch the movie Cinderella Man, you'll see actually Primo Carnera's in that. But there's actually a picture online, you can see Primo Carnera putting one of their gloves on his finger, because if you ever go to the Boxing Hall of Fame, his hands were like 2 of mine stacked on top of each other and next to each other. They were huge. The casting of his hand at the Hall of Fame is nuts. It makes Lennox Lewis's hand look small. It's insane. But he made stuff for Primo Carnera, and then eventually in 1947 made the brand Leone, and basically wound up making it for a ton of different Italian boxers throughout Italy. It branched out into Europe, and I'd say, you know, for me over the last 10 to 15 years, you know, of well, I've been in the sport for about 13, 14 years of boxing. I remember seeing people Leone stuff, and then on top of it, not to sound so like, you know, odd or weird about it, but a lot of the area where I'm from is primarily Italian, and there is like a Italian team. They have like they're a private wrestling MMA place. Basically, it's just a small club, and everyone in there primarily uses Leone 1947, and the reason for that is because it's Italian made, we're Italian, we want that. But that's weird, you know, as far as Italian heritage, which I am, Italian and Sicilian descent. I definitely should probably look into getting more of these because they are Italian made stuff. Although I think some of their stuff was probably made in Pakistan, we can be real there. But Leone 1947 is one of the bigger brands out there. I wouldn't call them like the Everlast of Europe, but they're definitely up there. You know, they have everything from the beginner, intermediate, you know, pro, everything like that. And like I said, they even made stuff for Glory Kickboxing back in the day, and they make stuff for Bellator to this day. So that is the gist of Leone 1947 of what I can tell you. You can go on their website and learn more about them as well. It's pretty cool history, actually. I love learning history about stuff. But when we go into my exact model that we have here, you'll actually remember last year I said, you know, I got a large and I meant to get an XL. They actually, something went weird with the stock and they shipped me the next size. I remember these came in late, and I was wondering why they were going to be a different size, and they basically sent me an email that I just never saw. So I wound up getting a large, and I didn't think they were going to fit my hand, but they actually fit pretty well because there's only a couple sizes you can get. You get them small, medium, large, and extra large. And honestly, I think an XL might have been a really good fit for me. But honestly, the large, after breaking them in, I can even fit hand wraps, like a fight wrap, in a large for my hands. And my hands are not necessarily small. I got big, wide palms and fat knuckles and fingers. And that's basically the idea, that my hands are not long, but I got fat knuckles, fingers, palms are really fat. My coach always says they're like wrapping catcher's mitts. But these gloves fit really well, actually, for me. So you got small, medium, large, extra large, and you can get them in 3 different colors. You can get them in Bellator red, blue, which is what I got, and then black. And then if you want the white Bellator Grand Prix gloves, you can actually go on their website and go in and look at that. They only come in in Velcro closure, as the last lace-up fight glove in MMA that I am aware of was Pride, probably, and I don't think that was a good design at all. I think everything else was awesome about those gloves, except for the lace-ups. So I think lace-ups and MMA glove just makes no sense. Boxing, yes. MMA, not so much. But when we go ahead and go into the look of the glove, like I said, you can get them in a nice Bellator blue color, which I have here. And for me, it just strikes me as like a Strikeforce blue or a WEC or Pride blue, and it just looks really nice. That's why I got this blue color. The red color is more of like a maroonish red. If you've ever seen Bellator, you've seen these, but just look how the light catches that. I really like this ring light, guys. But basically, when we come to the back of the glove, you can see all we have here is just a solid blue striking surface with a somewhat bold Leone 1947 text. It's like that curved vintage bold font that we have here on the back, and you can see once again it says Leone 1947. And then once we come here to the side, you can see that it's also blue. The finger piping is all black. That is leather as well. We'll go into the material in a second. You can see that the brackets, like the finger slits, are also blue. So most of the glove is blue and black. Speaking of blue and black, you got black piping throughout the palm. You also have a black interior lining. You have a black neoprene for the thumb sleeve, which is a nice touch. And then you also have a Leone 1947 logo here on the wrist strap, which is cloth. And that is also in black piping and blue strapping. You come down to the base of this, you can see the blue stitching throughout the glove here and throughout the fingers as well, and a large tag going down right there. When we open this, you actually have your bout or your contest tag, which is basically the commission signing stuff off, and it tells you that what the glove is made out of, and it also tells you that this is officially the GP 115 MMA contest glove, certifiable by any commission. Basically is what it's telling you on the inside, which is cool. For those of you that don't know, there are certain, like in boxing, they actually have tags on the inside of most gloves. Commission signs off on it, basically saying that this glove has been used for this amount of rounds, can no longer be used in a bout. So some commissions allow you to bring your own gloves. Most big ones do not. But in this case, that's basically what they're gonna have you do. But in this case, let's go into the build of the glove, talking about the outer shell on the Leone 1947 GP 115 is a nice cowhide leather. It's just a top grain smooth leather that we have going on here, and you have that all the way throughout the entirety of the glove, from the back all the way down here, and then even the piping is a nice solid leather, but the interior lining is that basic poly cotton that you got going on. That's the only part that is not leather. And it has a decent thickness. I definitely say it's a smooth, supple leather, but it has a decent amount of thickness over it for an MMA glove. But it is a nice, smooth, supple leather, very easy to clean because of how smooth it is. It is definitely different in the Power Lock in that the Power Lock has more of like that grain texture to it. This does not. You can definitely see the grains of the hide a little bit. Some of the imperfections are still there, I would say, as far as the grain marks go, but they're definitely not as, you can literally see just from there, like the outline of that going throughout here as far as the grains go. But that doesn't make the leather any worse or better. It has a nice leather scent, and it feels kind of like, it feels like a very nice office chair leather is the easiest way to word that. If you ever had an office chair, it feels like that. It is not a polyurethane leather. It's not a engineered leather. It is 100% cowhide that we have going on here. And then underneath, you have your one solid pocket, which is basically the back of your hand and your fingertips like this. That is all EVA foam, okay? So most people might get turned off by that, because when it comes to boxing gloves, when you train or fighting them, they're horsehair or they're high density foams. I don't think there's often that many closed cell foams in a ton of fight gloves, for the reason that closed cell foam, EVA foam, which stands for ethylene vinyl acetate, is the same stuff that they use in your bag gloves. Also the same stuff that they use for yoga mats, car crash dummies and stuff like that. They use it for wrestling mats. They use it for like Ensolite is a closed cell foam that they literally put in your car to stop blows from happening. They put them in bag gloves because it's a harder foam. It's not as spongy as a open cell foam that breathes a lot, whereas a closed cell foam, that's why it's called closed cell, the cells inside the little cell brackets inside the foam stay closed, so no air really gets in or out of it. So it's a much denser, more durable foam. So when you hit inanimate objects, it's gonna last a lot longer compared to a spongier foam. That's why a lot of people like to have one glove specifically for bags, one glove specifically for sparring. And in this case, this is a fight glove using a very thin layer of EVA foam. As you can see, it's a very, very thin layer. It's not very thick. It's about 1 inch at most. And I might be giving it too much credit there. And then on top of it, like I said, it is one solid piece. It's just one solid mold basically. So they have an EVA piece of foam and they basically cut out the back of the hand up to the fingertips like this. So this is virtually the glove that you have right here. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this, and that is the wrist support of the glove and the wrist strap and everything is not all that great as far as the design goes, because you have this motion here, which yes, you could do the same with this, with the power lock. The only difference is where the wrist strap lies on this, which I'll go into in a second. But as you can see here, there's virtually no padding on the back of the wrist to stabilize the wrist whatsoever. It is all just one solid piece of leather, and it is a soft piece of leather, but it's a loose, soft piece of leather that doesn't really hug to your wrist that well at all. When you open this, it's a short wrist strap, no longer than the power lock at the end of the day, really. But when I put this in, right, I'll talk about the other features of the interior lining and stuff in a second, you'll see that this wrist strap basically is like wound back like this, and it's not wound forward. So what I do is I have to like lean that forward and put that down. But now look, it's like how much I can literally just reach underneath and grab the inside of the glove. Whereas if I just do this and pull it tight, well, now there's nothing bracing really the side of my wrist, which a lot of people don't know is where a lot of the back pressure comes from. You want to stabilize the top of your wrist. It's like when you wrap your hands in fighting, you want to stabilize the top of your wrist because most of the breaks pop up that way, not outward. But the pressure comes from underneath like this and on the side like that. So when you punch, the shot goes that way, yes, the most, but still, if that's not braced and that's not braced, all the energy gets dispersed to different spots and it's going to break outwards that way. So there really is virtually no wrist support. And on top of it, the Velcro is so low compared to the power lock where the Velcro is a little higher, you can actually strap up a little bit on your wrist, whereas these, it's so far down. This is basically, you know, all the mobility you have. So it's good for grapplers and like, you know, Thai fighters that want to like curve down like this and stuff, yes. But at the end of the day, when you strike, you better have really good technique and tell your guy to wrap your hands tight around the wrist, because there is nothing about this glove protecting your wrist at the end of the day. I don't think it straps nearly as good as the power lock, so definitely a point taken off there at the end of the day. But the Velcro on this is actually pretty strong, and the wrist strap does pull tight. It's just, it's too far open. But that is good when you go to put your hand on the inside. Speaking of that, like I said, you have that really nice, soft, poly cotton material going on here. It's like that dry fit pillow material I talk about. It's not like foamy, but it is pretty soft to the touch, and it's just that solid lining. And when you put your hand in, it does slide in pretty easy. You gotta work your hand in a little bit. Like I said, there's a small neoprene sleeve that covers the base of your thumb. Does it add any protection? No, not really. It's just kind of there. Why, I don't know. Do I like it more than this on the power lock being open? Yeah, sure. At the end of the day, it does close it off a bit. Maybe it's to make sure that the tape doesn't get cut off that much, you know, or keeps it intact. But at the end of the day, does it protect you anymore? No. Is it a waste of material? No. I like it, but, you know, to each their own, I guess. Each finger has their own individual finger slit, which allows good mobility of your fingers. I will say towards the pinky, it does kind of curve my other hand down with it. And it does have that natural curve, as you can see here. It rests my fingers in this position. If I just relax my hand, it rests my fingers in a downward position. But any glove on the planet, guys, that easy to just flare my fingers out and do that. But when I strap it tight, like I said, the wrist support isn't really existent, and like the material comes off of my wrist so easily, so I have to strap really tight. But even then, I can really fish in and do that, which for a fight isn't good, because there are guys that break the rules all the time. I can see someone just going like that. So definitely, you know, obviously in pro fights, they're going to tape that down, which is good. But I still worry because that material just probably ain't going to be as good as some other ones would be. The finger compartment feels pretty good, and there's tons of room for my hand. And I think that was their goal, because the goal is what commissions would tell you. If you can fit 2 of your own fingers in here and close your fist like that around naturally, then yes, that is a good solid amount of padding I can fit in here. The hand compartment for a large is actually really good for my hands. The one thing I will say, it is a little tight around the finger compartment itself. Do I think they favor the grappler? No, I think they're trying to be well balanced, but I do think it probably is meant more for a striker trying to prevent hand breaks. But like I said, there's so much tension. When I ball my fist, the leather's literally being picked off of my wrist. There's so much tension. Keeping it squeezed is a little annoying. So definitely promotes my hand, you know, to try and close, but it's not nearly as good as, say, the power lock as far as just keeping it in a nice rested cupped punch position compared to this. You know, it's a lot harder to keep my hand squeezed. Even I pull it down a bit, it's a lot harder to keep my hand squeezed in these for whatever reason. I'm still going to try and get an XL, even though these fit really well, but at the end of the day, I think maybe an XL might fix that for me, but I don't know, because at the end of the day, these fit really good. So I don't really know what the solution to that might be. It could just be a design error, but let's go into the bag work, and then we'll come back for my final thoughts. All right, so hitting the gloves with these Leone GP 115s, the first thing you're going to notice is that they do cradle your knuckles much like a nice pair of bag mitts, and it feels really good. And the grips that you get on the bag are great, especially for clinch work if you're going to do like light sparring or pad work. Overall, the knuckle padding is really good, nice and protective. That solid EVA foam is going to keep you there, and you can feel your punches sink into each shot, but the wrist support you can definitely feel every now and again. You got to be careful with. So going into the look of these gloves, you can see that we got that classic Bellator blue. I'm showing you the grips you can get, palm-to-palm grip. Your S grips are very good. You can even try your basket grips a little bit. It works, but I just don't recommend that grip in combat sports in general. Your bar grips are good. It can slip behind the neck, underneath the arms, over the arms really easy. And they just look sharp. That's the thing about these gloves that I do like, is that they just have that classic Pride style blue that you see going on there, and I really love how they look. The Leone logo pops right out at you. Definitely, if you want to look like your favorite Bellator fighter, pick these up if you want to look stylish. Alright folks, so my final verdict here on the Leone 1947 GP 115 MMA contest gloves are, they're okay. They're not terrible, they're not the best. I definitely still kind of put them in the middle of all the different fight promotions gloves. I definitely like them more than, say, like the the UFC fight gloves. I like them more than the ONE FC fight gloves. They're, about there with a Wano, I'd say, as far as like, design goes and everything. But I definitely think things like the PFL fight gloves, both by Fuji, Century, the Ryzen MMA gloves, and then of course the Everlast Power Lock, which these gloves are trying to replicate a lot. I think these blow these out of the water at the end of the day, in all honesty, just because I just think the wrist support is really, really bad in these gloves, and I think that the padding isn't too bad, but overall, it's just kind of stiff in my fingers, towards the outward part of my fingers as well. And I even put these on because I know, like I said, these are a large on an extra large for my hands, but they fit really well. And what I did is I actually went to my friend who is a lightweight and had him put these on, and he said the same thing, that grappling in them were a little weird because the fingertips are so stiff, and even for his hands, which are much smaller than mine, they were still kind of stiff, and the glove moved kind of stiff still in a lot of ways. But let's go into some of the things that I like first, and then we'll talk about the things I wish they changed. First off, the leather is a decent quality, and the Velcro for a fight glove is actually pretty decent, even when you have it closed. So that's always good, because most people, when they fight in a promotion such as Bellator, will want to train in the glove they're going to fight in. So they might want one of these. They just might go on Leone one day, buy a pair, and say, okay, let's train in these. Instead of taping the wrist strap all day, they're going to just want the Velcro for convenience. And everything like that. So the Velcro is really strong, and the leather is super easy to clean, and on top of it, the interior lining is very comfortable and easy to clean. Overall, the fit of the glove is comfy, as far as curving their knuckles in. And then the design of the glove that I like is there's like a curvature on the inside of the knuckles. If you can really kind of see that scoop down here, because it's black, maybe not, but the idea is it like has a little area for my knuckles and my padding that I make for my fight wrap to fit in the glove, so it naturally feels good. So when I wrap my hands to train in these, I actually have wrapped them big with like winning NG2s on, like the knuckle guards, and they fit pretty well. Was it tight, not necessarily tight on the back of my hand. It's just, like I said, tight in the finger. It just feels like there's so much padding on this pushing down on my finger that it doesn't really allow me to open and close without squeezing really hard and forcing that padding down. On top of it, the thing is, since they're so top heavy because all the padding's just around here, guys, you have to really force this down, and this is maybe would sound confusing, but if you watch this part of the glove when I close my fist, it's gonna lift up. And when that happens, it takes the pressure off of my wrist. That's not what you want. You also don't want it for the back of your hand, because that's where I'd say a good 90% of hand injuries come from. Isn't the knuckles, it's your wrist, and it's the back of your hand, your metacarpals and stuff like that, and your thumb. That's why whenever I wrap hands, I put topward pressure down with the tape and the gauze, because that creates a compression that keeps your hand in a locked position to prevent injuries, because when your hand breaks, it pops upward, not really outside to side. So I just wish there was maybe a counterweight, or maybe even if they had like a wrist bar going across like this, I think the glove would be a lot better, but they don't. It's just a piece of leather around there, and then you basically got to ask your cornerman to tape, or the commission guy, inspector, to tape the back of your wrist nice and solid just for that extra support. And you also got to ask your cornerman or your cut man, whoever's doing your hand wraps, to really emphasize taping the wrist strong at the end of the day is how I would word that. But overall the leather's good, easy to clean, it maintains really well. As you can see, I've had these for about a year. I've used them quite often. I think they're decent to grapple with. The grips in here are pretty good. They slip through the cracks really well. You can get over underhooks really well, slip through the neck really well because of that curvature of the hand. Striking, it definitely favors the striker, but like I said, it just closing my fist for a prolonged period of time feels like I have to squeeze too tight, and I don't like that. Whereas the power lock, which these are trying to replicate in my opinion, it was very easy to just boop boop like that, and it just felt like an extension of my hand, whereas this feels like something is on top of my hand, kind of squeezing a bit, as far as my fingers, and then squeezing down like this go. Even if I bring this back farther, it wouldn't be that much better, because then these knuckles are exposed, and at that point I can cut you with that. They should fit naturally right here, right atop of your middle knuckle. Actually, that's where you want to close it, is usually most MMA designs. But even doing this, you can see like the blood in my fingers. I'm kind of white knuckling it here at the end of the day. But the thumb support, most MMA fight gloves, the pros will have an exposed thumb. The neoprene sleeve doesn't really do a whole lot, other than I find it keeps that thumb part of your tape intact pretty good when you wrap your hands. But overall, decently comfortable glove. There are definitely better gloves out there, especially for the price. This glove runs you about $60 plus shipping. You're probably going to pay $70. I'd go the extra 10 and just get these, or I'd get something else like a PFL Fuji even for $25 nowadays. If you want to invest the other 100 and however many dollars, you can get the Ryzen gloves. I think PFL gloves are definitely better than these. The padding is a little stiff. It does get a little softer over time, but it is a closed cell EVA foam, which is definitely going to protect your knuckles, but it is going to hurt like hell to get hit by that. So that's kind of how it works. It's basically the same padding that they use in a bag glove. But at the end of the day, guys, if you're asking for my opinion on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give these like a 6 or 7 out of 10. I'll be nice and give them a 7 out of 10, because I haven't had too many injuries in these gloves. I haven't had my knuckles hurt. I've had my wrist jolt a couple of times. The decent grip is not bad, but like I said, there are just so many other better gloves out there in my opinion that I'd rather just go with them over these. But Leone 1947 is a good brand, and like I said, I think they were basically given these and told them, can you try and copy these as best as you can. I think they're made a little cheaper as far as maybe production goes, but I don't think the materials are that much cheaper. Definitely, even from the interior lining, feels very similar to Power Lock. I think Power Locks are a little softer, a little bit more comfortable on the hands, smoother on the back of the hands. The interior lining is a little rougher compared to the Power Lock. And overall, it is a very basic MMA fight glove. I think there are better MMA fight gloves out there made by a ton of different people. Like I said, I think they're better than the UFC fight glove, although I need to get the UFC 30s because everyone's telling me that they apparently did change the fight glove design. But, they're better than 1FC. I'd say the finger compartment is not quite as tight as 1FC, but it's close. But overall, I mean, they're not horrible. They're not great. They're kind of run-of-the-mill. 6 or 7 out of 10 is what I'd give them. If I have to start giving like tiers from like F tier, D tier, C tier, you know, stuff like that, all the way up to S tier, I'd put them in like the C tier category because they're just kind of, they're alright. They're not great. I prefer other things over these. Even some things by like RDX, their fight gloves and stuff, I like a lot better than these. But overall, not bad, not great. Think you might want them for your collection. If you want to try them out, more than welcome to do that. If you want to be like your favorite Bellator fighter, there you go. These are the gloves to get. But guys, that was my review on the Leone 1947 GP 115 MMA contest gloves. We're just once again calling them the Leone MMA fight glove. Bellator's official fight glove. Not bad, not great. If you have any questions or if I missed anything in the review, although it was a bit of a longer review, I try and put as much detail as I can into these things, guys, because it's your health and your money at the end of the day. I put timestamps in there for your convenience. But at the end of the day, if you have any questions, please comment below. You know, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for all my next videos. But above all, comment and message me on my social media pages like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I do have X, but I just never use it. Twitter, but basically, I welcome you to ask me questions about these, you know, or any other things that you want me to review at the end of the day. Please post your recommendations in the video below, and let me know what you thought. So, with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching The Combat Corporation, your source for combat sports. I've been your host, Al the Postmaster Morrow, and as always, I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.